Let's talk about the Nick Reiner case and a new update where a grand jury has indicted him on charges. Welcome to the Light True Crime. Let's get into these details. So let's get into the first document that we have, and it is from July 20th, 2026. They had a proceeding that was a grand jury presenting indictment. And it states in here that at 3:22 p.m. on this date, the grand jury returns into the courtroom with 23 members present. The foreperson presents the following indictment to the court and states that 14 or more grand jurors were present and concurred in the return of the indictment. The court finds that the indictment is a true bill, and this is going to be a superseding indictment of the complaint that was filed in the case. So just when it comes to the whole court system, when I saw this this had a completely different case number. Obviously, that was assigned for this grand jury indictment versus Nick's actual case number for the homicide of both of his parents. Based on this, they were having an arrest warrant issued and that there would be no bail. But obviously, Nick has remained in custody, so nothing is changing there. And that the arraignment on these charges is going to be set for Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. So let's look at some of these documents that were filed. And it just goes over that count one involves Nick Reiner being accused by this grand jury of the County of Los Angeles, state of California, by this indictment on the crime of first degree, we'll say homicide on this platform. And it goes on to say that on or about December 14th, 2025, that, Nick committed the homicide of Michelle Reiner, who was his mother. Now, count two goes into that same charge, first degree homicide, and this is where they read it and apply it to his father, Robert Reiner. Now, here's where a special circumstance comes in, and this is what could hold Nick to the DP charge. And this is that it's further alleged in counts 1 and 2 that the homicide of Michelle Reiner and Robert Reiner were committed by the defendant, Nick Reiner, and that the defendant intentionally unalived the victims by means of lying in wait. And it's also further alleged for counts 1 and 2 that in the commission or attempted commission of the above offense that the defendant, Nick Reiner, personally used a deadly or dangerous weapon, which was a KNIFE. The charges go on to state as well that the above offenses involved great violence, great bodily harm, threat of great bodily harm, or other acts disclosing a high degree of cruelty, viciousness, or callousness within the meaning of California Rules of Court, Rule 4.421, subsection A1. And then it's further alleged that counts 1 and 2 that Nick Reiner was armed with or used a weapon at the time of commission of the above offense. It is also further alleged as to counts 1 and 2 that the victim of the above offenses were particularly vulnerable. And that's where this document that I previously posted was found, which it included the witness list to the grand jury. And we are able to see that the very top 2 witnesses on this list that are confirmed were Nick's own siblings, Jake and Romy. And just for those who do not know, to elaborate on the lying in wait charge, which you see in other cases, in the David Burke case, he also has a special circumstance on it. And it is an allegation of lying in wait. And this, as shown above, describes an ambush-style attack on unsuspecting victims. And like I said, this is what would make Nick eligible for life without parole or the DP if he's convicted. Moving along, like that last document, Nick was to be brought back into court on August 12, 2026 for a new arraignment based on these indictments. You can see at the bottom over here that the defendant pleads not guilty to count 1 and count 2, and he's denied any and all allegations. So from this arraignment, they were also setting a pre-trial conference, which in the countdown of 60 days that this is supposed to happen, this will be day 34 of 60. And that is now set for Tuesday, September 15th, 2026 at 8:30 in the morning in Department 108. So that day will be the next time we get information. The LA County District Attorney did make a statement saying, quote, "This was a profound betrayal by someone who was loved and trusted by the very people he's accused of unaliving. We hope that by having a grand jury return an indictment in this case, it will bring us one step closer to a trial and achieving justice." Now, while these proceedings were ongoing, there's still another active case going on in probate court. And I was reading through some of the documents. I haven't had a chance to print them out yet, and I'll be at the courthouse tomorrow, so I'll probably see if I can then. But it's where Nick is trying to get $1.5 million from a trust that had been promised to him at an earlier age that the family, essentially delayed giving to him. I can speculate. The presumption seems to be due to numerous amounts of problems he was having, and they had him in rehab and getting medical attention. So they weren't going to give somebody funding, I think, to access that could potentially assist him in some of the vices that he had. That's just going to be a presumption I have. Again, I'm going to pull those probate documents and I'll read them out here this week. Now, I did want to share just something a little bit different at the end of this case, was that about 3 weeks ago, the siblings, Jake and Romy, went to Dodger Stadium and they threw out the first pitch for a Dodgers versus Red Sox game. So just here's some photos from that event, and it has some meaning because going to Dodgers games was pretty important to the family. Here is some information that Jake shared on social media. It says, after the monumental moment, Jake took to Instagram to share what throwing the first pitch meant to him and his family. The Dodgers have always been a huge part of our family. My dad and I could talk baseball for hours, and I truly never felt closer to him than when we'd watch games together. Dodger Stadium is a place we'd love to come to as a family. Romy and I wanted to honor our mom and dad by throwing out a ceremonial first pitch for each of them. We're grateful the Dodgers helped make this moment so special. Jake actually wrote more about this history with going to the Dodgers games, and he shared this photo in an article that he wrote on his Substack. Now, if you look at my channel, I do have a playlist labeled Nick Reiner, and I do read out Jake's Substack writing, so please check it out there because it was honestly a really great piece of journalism and coming directly from him to really honor his parents in the way that he wrote. So I thought it was just a nice way to end this video with just sharing how Jake and Romy honored their parents at a Dodgers game. Can't imagine what it is like for them to have to be going through this, to have to testify in front of a grand jury on their very own brother regarding the death of their parents. It's truly just an unimaginable situation. But that's all for this one. Thank you so much for tuning into The Light True Crime. Remember, what happens in the dark will always come to the light. Please be safe, be kind to one another, and as always, I will see you all in the next one.